It's Derrick Scott from Hot Country 92.5, part of the Clarence-Rockland Guide. From farming to a family business to health to science to beer. He's done it all in a very short time. Eric Mainville, who is the head brewer at Brauwerk Hoffman Rockland, joins us on the Clarence-Rockland Guide. Welcome.
Morning, Derek.
You grew up in the Pontiac. Farming primarily in the beginning when you were young?
That's correct, Derek. About 2 hours west of here from Rockland in a town called Les Allumettes, so a little farming town on the Quebec side.
Did you, as many children growing up on a farm, have a ton of chores to do?
Yeah, I have 4 sisters and 1 brother, so me and my brother are mostly the ones working on the farm, so we had that on top of the family drilling business, so very busy as a child.
So tell me more about the family drilling business. How does that tie into farming, or does it?
It does, and it even ties in more into beer, I would say, because we drilled for water wells, so residential and commercial. We still have the family business, and so the big shop and everything for the heavy equipment, so all that kind of work and stuff ties in with farming along those lines. We're dealing with heavy equipment all the time.
So now you're the head brewer for Brauwerk Hoffman Rockland, but in the beginning it wasn't beer that was your aspiration. It was actually science, medicine, and becoming a doctor.
Yeah, so as a child, my first job, when I think way back when, I wanted to be a clown, and it was more just interacting with people and making them feel good. That shifted over more towards healthcare, like you said. So I was actually I was a practicing RN, as a registered nurse, and I did science before that to get a good base, and then I did my nursing degree. And then from there, I was waitlisted for medical school, and that's where I was heading. But it was always in the back of my mind that I wanted to do something more business-oriented, so like a family GP practice or something like that. And we still had we still have to this day the family farm and the drilling company and stuff. So for me, I've always had that business drive in my coursing through my blood, basically. And I knew I wanted to do something along those lines. Artistic side and science side are 2 important things, I think, to all people. But to me, the best way I found to express that was, and the farming side and everything tied in, was beer, to be honest.
When did you make that decision to make quite an interesting transition?
Yeah, so I started kind of dwelling in the brewing process on my own as like a home brewer and stuff like that around 2013. Before then, the craft beer scene had already kind of taken off here in North America in the early 2000s, and I was already consuming some of that beer and stuff. And I always kind of tell people a joke. I kind of got into brewing beer because I thought I'd save money in the long run. So fast forward a couple years later with a $500,000 investment in a brewing business. Well, I still get to enjoy my own beer, put it that way.
Did you enjoy, and be honest, some of the first beers that you put together at home? Now, be honest.
Yeah. So I always heard like horror stories of like the beer tasting terrible and stuff. But I associate that, I didn't have those bad experiences, I think, not because I think I'm necessarily the best brewer or anything like that. More so, I have a very keen detail to, cleanliness and stuff like that. And I can associate that probably to, my medical kind of background and stuff like that. And I think brewing a beer is often like a cake in a box. It could be that simple where you go buy a couple ingredients, mix them in a pot, and at the end of the day, you have your beer. And the difference is you can take that to the next level and source your ingredients, visit the farms, visit the hop farms, visit the malt farm, delve into where you're getting your yeast and get as complicated as you want to. And when I was saying a while ago, my upbringing had an influence on beer basically my whole life. Well, drilling for water has, a 99% of the ingredient used in the beer making process. So it's little things like that I can bring my background to making beer better at the end of the day.
So with your background in education to follow medicine, I imagine there had to be a background in education to get into
Yeah, so Niagara College, after I finished, so I went to CEGEP, which is basically the college equivalent on the Quebec side, for a science degree there, and then I did my nursing background here at Ottawa U, and then after that I pursued, it's the brewmaster and brewery operation technician course at Niagara College. So that's a fast forward 2-year program. I was the first year that they decided to do it over 16 months straight through. And that was in 2015 when I graduated from that. And at the end of that is where I fell even more in love for the love that I have for the beer history in Germany, actually, because I had the opportunity to not only visit Germany, but go even brew with the people at Weinsteffen, which is the self-declared oldest brewery in the world, 1040 AD. And so it's quite an old brewery. And people always ask me if it was an educational process or what kind of trip was it for me. It was more so a cultural experience. So I got to brew with the guys. I got to go around. We visited the manufacturers and stuff like that. It was a great time. A lot of beer was drank and a lot of good times were had.
So obviously it was the experience as well that sold you on the German beer.
Yeah, so I was already, the business wheels were already going in my head for quite a while. Even after, I practiced for a short term in the medical field from 2013 to 2015. But I was always keen on starting a business and stuff, and we were bouncing around ideas. And the beer stuff, as I was doing that, it was very popular and picking up around in Ontario and Eastern or all North America basically. And I knew I needed to do something like that. And doing research, I always found that a lot of the breweries here focus mainly on two styles of beer, which would be UK British style ales and North American style beers. Lagers are more European or German or Belgian styles, although Quebec did push quite a bit of Belgian style beers, but nobody was really exploring too much of the German beers. And to me, which was a big hole in the market, because German beers are old and true and tested in time. And all these styles, I found it important that I wanted to bring those to light and have those tasted, and people like the beers. So it was an easy one for me to try to focus on that. Yeah.
Timing was perfect, obviously, with craft beer taking off. Did you sample a lot of other craft beer when you were putting together, for example, your business plan and your focus to brew German-style beer, or did you stick to what was in your heart and in your mind?
It's really a combination of both those things. So you're always exploring the market. I think regardless of whether it be beer or anything you're doing, you want to know what your market is, what people are after, and the next thing to come. That's what really makes your business break through, right? To hit that stride when it's on its climb and what's going on. And for me, beer, that was an easy one in that sense. It's I think every business owner and stuff like that has this idea and whatnot. You're going to throw a lot of ideas at the wall. Some of them are going to stick, some of them are not. But you got to take that risk, and that's why we get into business, right? So, for me, a lot of exploration, like you're saying, and research. Yeah, it sounds funny to drink a lot of beer, but at the same time, it's not just beer. You're looking how people are marketing things, how they're doing this. What ingredients are they using? What's the next style to be the new fad, and this and that, and that's my everyday life.
And let's face it, you still need to stand out. If you go into any LCBO outlet now, or any successful restaurant that features a number of beers, the possibilities are endless. There are so many craft breweries out there, so you do need to stand out.
You need to stand out, you need to evolve, you need to be quick on the ball for that kind of stuff. I think most business owners, and I think the most successful ones, are somewhat a bit of a perfectionist at the end of the day. I'll probably never say that I think my beer is the best beer, because I'm my biggest critic on my own beer. So I'm always striving to make it better every day.
And that's how you grow.
That's how you grow. And if you don't have that mentality, that's where you start to stale and fade away.
So your background growing up in the Pontiac Niagara College you mentioned, you and I were chatting about Ottawa U. How do you arrive in Clarence-Rockland?
So Ottawa U is where I met my business partner that's from actually the Eastern Ontario region. That came into later because when we were exploring, when we're at the point now to choose a location for the brewery that we wanted to open up, we're looking anywhere from 3 hours west of Ottawa to 3 hours basically east of Ottawa, or 2 hours basically all the way up to Montreal. And Rockland was always in our top threes since 2013 because I was looking at this town that was really exploding in the population. If you look at just from 10, 15 years ago to what it is now, Rockland is one of the most expanding towns in all of Eastern Ontario. So lots of stuff was coming here, and if you look at it, there's a couple breweries here in Prescott Russell. We have Broken Stick in Hammond, Castle Brew in Castleman, Tuc de Brew and Limoges en Brun, and even Bose and Vankle Hill. It sounds like a lot almost to certain people, but if you compare it to Ottawa, where Ottawa based alone has over 30 microbreweries in its area. So for us looking here and the opportunity with this town starving for something new and starving for local events and everything, it was very easy for us to make this decision. And when we decided to take the leap here and looking in, there was a building opportunity there up for rent, and it checked all the boxes for us.
Now, in the beginning, was there still a plan to have a restaurant as well and not just a brewery?
Very early on, because the way the market, so regional breweries were kind of shifting, people were shifting away from that, and the whole focus on local, which is an important aspect, was going towards that. And even if we look at Clarence-Rockland, the thing we always hear here is restaurant selection is something that the people thrive for or are looking for here. So it was easy for us, and it's the best way as a brewery for us to get you to sample and try our products. And we not only are selling beer, but we want to sell basically an experience. When you come to Brauwerk Hoffman, we want you to enjoy a taste of basically Germany or German-inspired styles of food, beer, and just a general old beer hall experience where you could sit down, have a beer, you can meet somebody, have a chat, talk politics, talk weather, talk whatever you want, have a good time.
And you recently created that by teaming up with the River Rock Inn and Conference Center for your Oktoberfest event. And little known fact, Oktoberfest is truly celebrated in September, correct? Not necessarily just in October.
Yeah, we're actually, I'm just trying to think of the dates real quick here, but we're about 9 days away from the actual official opening of the Oktoberfest, which happens every year in Munich, this worldwide phenomenon, one of the biggest folk festivals known to man. And yeah, the festival actually starts in mid-September and normally ends in the beginning of October. It's kind of a funny thing with the name. A lot of people always question anything when there's an Oktoberfest that starts late September, but that's really more to tradition. So.
Brauwerk Hoffman Rockland, obviously, the brewery, the restaurant, but it's also a business that believes in giving back. You support charities, you create events where you give money back to charities. Was that always the plan?
It was always the plan. So if you look at us, we always want to give back in our community. We want to not only be in the community, but be part of the community. So if you look at our timeline here in Rockland, we started in 2020, mid-pandemic. So it's not something we had envisioned. I don't think anybody had. So those 2 first years were really hard because we couldn't necessarily even host events, even if we wanted to. With everything that was going on in the world, it was hard to do anything like that. We did as much as we could during those 2 years, and going forward now, that's kind of behind us now, and now we can finally focus on working with the community for the community.
And giving back to the community events and entertainment that they want. I find that this area is always craving something to do on a Friday night, something to do on a Saturday night where they don't necessarily have to drive into Orleans or Ottawa you're trying to create that experience. So the experience on the beer, the experience on the restaurant, the food, but also giving back with entertainment.
Yeah, whether it be music, comedy shows, everything, we want to showcase what the local people have here as well. And we want to give people something to have here locally that they can be proud of. When family visit from out of town, they'll say, hey, let's head down to the beer hall. They have a music show tonight. Or just, have you ever had a schnitzel? Come over. Let's try this. You know, if you're tired of having mom and pop spaghetti or the pizza from the corner, come over to the Brauwerk Hoffmans and try something different.
Eric Mainville from Brauwerk Hoffman Rockland, thanks for being a part of the Clarence-Rockland Guide.
Thank you very much, Derek.